Yeah guys, the next topic is object oriented programming structures. As I already mentioned, this is a list of topics. This contains some list of concepts. So these are applied on several languages. These are not only for C#.NET, it is there for Java, Python, Ruby or any other languages. So this list of topics has implemented on several languages, and the languages which will follow all these guidelines that can create error-free and robust software, reusable software. I mean to say. So it contains some list of topics, guys. The first one, class and object. The second one, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstraction, constructors, and exception handling. So these are the list of topics available in this particular OOPS scenarios. So these are going to be helpful for us while creating a software. The languages which will follow these topics, those can develop error-free and robust software. Okay. So first let us start with this class and object. So what is a class first? How a class can be defined? A class is nothing but the people will call that it is a collection of objects. Suppose if you take human beings are the category, human beings is a class. So it contains men and women or the objects. So those are nothing but implementation of the particular type called human beings. So like the same, the class is can be defined like this. A class is a group of, it is a group of data members and member functions. It contains two things, one is data members, another one is member functions. Data members can be technically called as variables. Member functions nothing but these are functions, or you can also call methods. So these two combination we can call it as a class. That doesn't mean that both should present at one shot. Sometimes class can contain only variables, class can contain only functions also. According to the requirement, we are going to create a class like this. And coming to the syntax, always the definition can, the implementation can be like this: class and some class name. So after that you will have an open close. In between you are going to mention either variables or functions inside the class. Okay. So this is the first thing you need to understand. Now let me show you a quick example how we can create a class and how we can work with the class and all those things. So suppose class sample. So here you can see it can contain public. Why it is public I will tell you till the time we cover encapsulation. Let's wait why we are using that one. Okay. So public int a, public int b. So public void sum. So here it is going to print the sum of a plus b. So if you see here a and b, we can call them as data members, nothing but variables. So sum can be called a member function. So this is how you can define a class. Okay. Now one more thing. After that we have the next topic called object. So object can be declared like object can be what we can define like this. An object is a instance of a class, or we can call implementation of a class. So suppose in case if I want to design an electronic circuit, on paper whatever I will draw a blueprint, that is what called class. Whenever I implement that from the diagram to the original equipment, that can be called an object. So once again you can take the example, human beings are the class. Class always cannot be operated because human beings is a category. you cannot operate it, right? So the implementations always can be operated. If I want to design a car on paper, I will write the car should be having an engine like this, it should have this much of mileage, and all these things are the features. So I cannot operate which is on the paper, right? I need to implement it. That implementation can be called an object. So as I said, object is an instance of a class, or you can also call it's an implementation of the class. Now in case if I want to call the sum method, so I cannot call directly. If I write sum, system will give you an error, where is the sum method? That is the reason you have to implement it. That means you need to create an object for that one. So how to create an object in the sense, always you can create by using a new keyword, new class name. This is going to be an object. This is going to be an object. So, but whenever I want to reuse the same object for multiple times, I need to save it with a name. So that is the reason I can save with a name. If I write like this, system will throw an error, because if I write a is equal to 10, system will ask me what is a type. So 10 is of integer type, then I can use int a is equal to 10, because 10 is belongs to integer type. This object is also always belongs to the class type. That is the reason. So you can use class name space object name is equal to new class name. The object type always it will be class type. So the men or women will be always the type of human beings. So that's how it is going to be. So coming to this example, as I said, you can take the type as object name is equal to new sample. I created object. Now S1 will become object of the sample class. S1 will become object of the sample class. So a class can have n number of objects. There is no limit for us. Okay. So next I can take sample S2 equal to some new sample. So this is the second one. So like that I can create hundreds of objects for a class. So now if I want to pass values to this, I need to write s1 dot object name dot a is equal to some 10, s1 dot b is equal to some 20. Now I can call s1 dot sum function. So s1 dot in the sense s1 already have a 10 b 20, so that it will print 30. Like the same I can write s2 dot a is equal to 15, s2 dot b is equal to 26. Now s2 dot sum method, then it will perform the sum of 15 plus 26. Now if I execute, I can see the result of the both, so 30 and 41. So like that we can reuse the code by using the classes. So this particular class code can be reusable by creating n number of objects. For every object I can pass different values, so that I will get the different result also. So this is how a class and object can be defined in object oriented programming. Okay. The next topic, completely designed for reusability, that is what called inheritance. So guys, this inheritance. So inheritance is nothing but getting some of the properties from one class to another class. So the people will define it in real time scenarios like this. Inheritance is nothing but so acquiring the properties from one class to another class. So the class which is giving the permissions can be treated as parent class or base class. The class which is utilizing the permissions can be called as child or derived class. Let me explain you with an example. Suppose there is a class demo1 example. So it contains a variable public int a is a, that's it. And we have another class public demo2. So here we have public int b. So we have two classes, each class contains a variable. So now what is mean by inheritance? First of all, let me create object for them both separately. So demo1 d1 is equal to new demo1. That means d1 is the object for the demo1 class. So by using this, I can able to pass value to only this variable a, because we have access to only this object will have access to only that class. So now in case if I want to print d1.a, so then I can print the value 10 on the screen. Like the same, demo2 d2 is equal to new demo2. So d2 dot I can able to access only b. So b is equal to some 25. So console write line d2 dot b. So like that you can operate. So the respective objects can access the respective variables. So what is mean by inheritance in the sense here, if for demo2 if I keep a colon and if I write demo1, that means the demo1 will become the parent class because it is going to give the permissions to demo2. That means we are in demo2 is inheriting demo1. So what is the advantage of using this inheritance in the sense you can see here also I can able to access the properties of the demo1 class. From the demo2 also I can able to access the properties of demo1. So here also I am going to pass some value to the a variable. So actually a is belongs to d1 object, right? So even with d2 we are able to access because we are inheriting the parent class. So since this class is giving permissions to this one, so demo1 can be called as parent or base class. We can call this as parent or base class. So the demo2 can be called as child or derived class. The technical terminology is derived class. Okay, so this is what called inheritance. So inheritance is of 5 types. The first one is single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and the last one hybrid inheritance. So there are different types of inheritances available. So let me show you diagrammatically so that you can also practice after the session. So now when there is one parent class and one child class, one parent class and one child class, suppose A is parent here, B is child here. So inheritance always it can be represented like this in up direction. So that means B inheriting A. So this is what called, this type of inheritance is called single inheritance. Single inheritance. So whenever you have multiple parent classes, whenever we have multiple parent classes and we have only one child class, multiple parent classes and one child class. So here, so if we have the parent class A and the parent class B and the child class is C, then we can call it as multiple inheritance. So in C sharp, multiple inheritance cannot be possible. In C sharp, multiple inheritances cannot be possible because what is the problem? Let's try to understand. In class A, you have a method called print, example. So in class B also, we have a method called print. So according to the inheritance logic, the child class will have permissions on both classes, correct? So whenever I call some C1 is object, if I call C1 dot print function, now our compiler will be in a confusion whether to execute the print method from A or print method from B class. So this is what called ambiguity problem. Ambiguity problem. So nothing but having a duplication, chance of having duplication methods. So we are not going to implement multiple inheritance in C sharp. So what is the alternative in case if you have a real-time requirement to use such kind of process in our program, in our project, then we have the replacement for this is interfaces. There is a topic called interfaces in C#. So that is going to implement such kind of requirements, but direct implementation is not possible. So this is what multiple inheritance. Next, coming to the multi-level inheritance, when there are different steps of levels, then we will call them as multi-level inheritance. So suppose class A, class B. So for class B, class A is the parent class. So for class C, class B is the parent class. So these are all connected with inheritance logic. So then last level, the class C will have access of all the properties of A and B. This type of inheritance we can call them as multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance. Next, the fourth one, hierarchical inheritance. So here you will have one parent class and more than one child class. That can be two or more, but I am taking the example of two. So for this the parent class is this one, and for this also the parent class is this one. Then these two child classes will access the properties of all the methods of the parent class and all the variables of the parent class. So this is what called hierarchical inheritance. Okay. So next, the last one coming to this, so that is what called hybrid inheritance. So single means always one parent, one child should be there. By any way, multiple inheritance is not possible to implement. Only we have two options left, that is what called so multi-level and hierarchical inheritance. The combination of these two types we will call them as hybrid inheritance. Let's take an example again. So we have one parent class and two child classes. If you see this, what is it means? This is hierarchical inheritance. So if you have one more level for this particular one child, so this is going to be multi-level. Let me show you diagrammatically. Here we have class A, so here we have class B, and here we have class C, and here we have class D. So let me write the hierarchy. So B is inheriting A, C is also inheriting A, and D is also inheriting C. Now if you see this A and B and C, this is nothing but hierarchical inheritance. If you see this A, C and D, it is nothing but multi-level inheritance. The combination of these two will become the type hybrid inheritance. Okay. So you can just have a practice about all these five so that you will have a good clarity. So in this program, whatever we take in demo 1 and demo 2, nothing but this is a single inheritance. Suppose if I have some class demo 3 which is inheriting demo 2, so it will become the type multi-level. You can see demo 3 connected to demo 2, demo 2 connected to demo 1. This is nothing but hierarchy multi-level inheritance. Suppose if this demo 3 also inheriting demo 1, that means demo 2 and demo 3 both are using the parent class demo 1, that will become the hierarchical. So like that you can have a practice about this inheritance topics. Now next, moving to the next topic, that is what polymorphism. So polymorphism is nothing but it is a topic of having multiple instances with same name. Normally polymorphism can be technically defined like this: one in many forms. So polymorphism is of two types actually. One is static polymorphism, the second one is dynamic polymorphism. Static polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism. Static polymorphism can be also called as method overloading. Static polymorphism can be also called as method overloading. Dynamic polymorphism can be also called as method overriding. So static polymorphism can be also called as compile time polymorphism, and dynamic polymorphism also called as runtime, while executing it can be happen, runtime polymorphism. So these are the two types available in the type of polymorphism. So let us discuss about the static polymorphism by writing a program so that you will have a good clarity on this. So static polymorphism can be also happen, can always happen inside a single class, but dynamic polymorphism can be happen in between the two or more classes which are connected with the logic of inheritance. Let me show you first the static polymorphism. So here we have a class, here we have a class, suppose the class name is arithmetic. So here we have a class arithmetic. So here we have public void sum is a function. So where this sum function requires int x and int y. Okay. So it is going to print some x plus y example. Now if you write the same definition again, our compiler is going to give you an error, throw an error, because already we have a sum method with two integer types. So then if I make one as a double type, then it won't give you any error. So if I write one more where it contain first one is an integer and second one is a double value, and like the same if you have two double values. So if you see all these four methods, the function name is same, the return type same, but only these are differ by the type of parameters. Once again I am repeating. So if you see this all methods, the function name will be same, return type will be same. These are differ by the list of parameters or the number of parameters. So this is what called static polymorphism. Static polymorphism is nothing but having more than one function with same name and same return type, but these are differ by the parameters. So this is what called method overloading also. Method overloading also. Now if you see this example, arithmetic some AR is equal to new arithmetic. So if I write AR.sum, I will see only one method, not four methods, and you can see the description. It is going to show you this is one description plus there are three overloads available. There are three overloads available. So whenever you pass two integers, the first one will get execute. Whenever you pass one decimal value and one integer, then second method will get execute. Whenever you pass first one as an integer and second one as a decimal value, so it is going to switch for the third method. So whenever you pass both decimal values, then the fourth method will get executed. That means what I mean to say, according to the parameters, the methods are being switched. So before executing only, our compiler will have a clarity that which method to execute. That is the reason we will call this kind of methods as compile time polymorphism. So this is what static polymorphism or method overloading or compile time polymorphism. So once again I am repeating, inside a single class having multiple methods with same return type and which are differed by the parameters, those we can call them as static polymorphism, method overloading. Okay. So I can give you one more example. If you see all these types of methods are having two parameters, right? So we can also implement the static polymorphism in another way, that is what, having the same data number of differ by number of parameters also. So here we have two integers. So here if I have int z, so this is also can be called as static polymorphism. So here also if you see the same name, same return type, but differ by the parameter count. Somewhere anyhow you need to have a differentiation by the parameter, even by number, even by data type, anything is fine. So this is what called method overloading. So now method overriding. Method overriding always it can be possible in between two classes, two or more classes. which are connected with inheritance logic, which are connected with inheritance logic. So suppose you have a bank version 1 class. So here we have public void withdraw some int amount. Okay, now so here suppose you implemented logic withdraw done through the branch. The person visited the branch and he can withdraw the amount. That is what the software logic we have at version 1. Now we have one more class, that is version 2. Version 2. So these two are connected by inheritance. Now if you see, if I create object for the child class, actually it should get the properties from the parent class, correct? So here in this we are replacing the code of that one. Suppose at that time we have ATM, or next in version 3 we have UPI transactions, something like this. So in the child class replacing the parent class functionality, we can call it as method overriding. So here if you see, the return method name will be same, return type will be same, even the parameter type and parameter count is also same. So but these two are available in two classes connected with inheritance. So whenever you create object for bank version 2, instead of calling the parent class method, it will execute the child class method only, because the same definition we have here also. So our compiler will understand here we got new code, instead of executing old one we can call the new one. So this is what will happen. Now let's see the example also. When you create object version 1, you can see the result. It was the transaction was happened through the branch. Now let's execute. Withdraw done through the branch. That means it executed its own method. Now whenever we create object for the child method, bank version 2 v2 is equal to new bank version 2. So v2 dot withdraw of 4000. Now if you see, it will call, instead of calling the parent method, it will call the child method. So withdraw done through the ATM. So this is what called replacing the functionality or overriding the functionality. Okay, so but it was executed, no problem at all. But here you should notice, in case if you want to implement it properly, so whenever you want to give the permission to replace the code in future child classes, you need to have a keyword called virtual. Once again I am repeating, in case if you want to give permission to replace the particular method functionality in future child classes, so you have to use a keyword called virtual. Without this also it will execute, but as per the technical standard you need to use the word virtual. Now wherever you are replacing the code of the parent class method, there you have to use a keyword called override. So now you can see there is no error warning message also. So override in the sense you are replacing code of your parent class. So then you should use override keyword. Once again I am repeating, whenever you want to give the permission to replace or override the functionality, then that method should have a keyword called virtual. Wherever you are replacing the functionality of your parent class method, there you need to have override keyword. So this is what called dynamic polymorphism or method overriding in C#. Okay. The next topic, that is what called encapsulation. So encapsulation is a process of sharing or hiding. Encapsulation is a process of sharing or hiding permission of a variable or a method of a class. So you will decide whether to project our code, our method to the child classes or anywhere. So we are going to use encapsulation. Encapsulation contains different access specifiers. By using a keyword, that is what called access specifier, you are going to decide what permissions you want to give. So there are different access specifiers available. So let me show you that one by one. The first one is public, the second one is private, the third one is protected and internal, and the last one is default. The last one is default. Now let me create a simple program and explain you how it is going to be. Class parent public int a is equal to 20, public void print, so console write line of a method. So class child, which is inheriting the parent method, so here also we have public int b, public void show. Now we have two classes like this, guys. So let us target on these variables, okay, a and b. So here, since a is in public mode, let's create the objects. Parent p1 is equal to new parent p1 dot even I can pass the value also is equal to 22. So like the same, child c1 is equal to new child p2 dot I can able to access, sorry, c1 dot a is equal to some 66, c1 dot b is equal to some 19, and I can able to call that show method also and print method also I am able to call. So what I mean to say, whenever you will use the public keyword, so then that property will be accessed everywhere, even with the object, even inside the class, even by the child classes also. So whenever you keep the word public, so it will be accessible everywhere, open. So you can use in the current class, current project, even in the another project also you can utilize it. So coming to the private is completely secure. Only you can access inside the class. You can see. So when it is private, I am able to use inside the same class in print method. But if you see this, I cannot access by the object. Even I cannot access by child class object also. So whenever I use the private keyword, I can use only inside that class, not outside that class. So you can see even with the object we are unable to access it. So whenever you want to keep your data protect completely safe, you don't want to share your code to outside of the class, you can make it in private mode. Next, protected. So if you use protected, it is going to be similar as like private, no difference at all. But only thing is, whenever you use protected, you can pass values from the child classes. Going forward, you can see at base class or something like this, base keyword or something. So you can see the type of protected and internal. So whenever you use it as an internal type, whenever you use it as an internal type, so you can see it will be accessible, it will be similar to public, but it is accessible only within the current project, not outside of the project. So you can utilize it in only in the current project, not in any other project wherever you are using in future. So once again I am repeating, public is open everywhere, it can be accessible everywhere. Private only within the class. Protected, you can access within the class from the child classes you can able to access and pass the values. Internal, it is like public, but it won't accessible to other projects. Default in the sense when you are not mentioning anything. When you are not mentioning anything, it will become like private. Whenever there is no keyword, whenever you are not mentioning any of the access specifier type, so then it will be in private mode. Always it will be in private mode. That is what default access specifier. So default is nothing but whenever you are not keeping any particular access specifier type, in what way it will become? It will become like private. Remember this. So this particular keyword will decide whether your method or variable to access outside or not. That is what called encapsulation. You are going to protect it, close it or show it, depends upon a access specifier keyword. So this is what called encapsulation, guys. This is what called encapsulation. Now coming to the next type, I'll continue it in the next video.